Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger, and today I have the pleasure of talking to my new friend, James Pelton. Now, if you are in crypto at all and watch YouTube videos, you may have heard of his name because he has a very large YouTube channel talking about his journey through crypto. And today we're chatting with him to talk about his story, how he built a program that did blast email or blast text marketing, and he sold that. And he just tells of his journey of how he, was at the mountaintop and had his dream house, and then he realized that, all this money is not where it's at. And that's just a fascinating story, a fascinating journey. We all think that, man, money is just going to be the end all be all of everything. And James's story proves that it is not. It's not. Money does not buy you happiness. We had a great conversation about building a business. He said, and this is so key, start small. Don't go out and get tons of money and invest all this time, energy, effort, and hope starting a business and then find out that people don't even want it. Start small, put together that minimum viable product. I've talked a lot about that, and I totally agree with him. If you're starting a business, what's the very least you can do to test this out? Fail fast, fail quickly. But James is an awesome guy. We just talked a lot about the Lord, about his journey, about what he's learned, about also an awesome announcement. He is joining the Passive Income Engines community that I worked to help start a couple of years ago with Travis Peters, and he's going to be joining us in that group to bring tons of value. I know some of you may have been in that group before, and so it's completely changed. Whereas before it was like 90% crypto, and I felt like, gosh, I don't really have a place to add value here because it got so technical. Now the group is going to be more about traditional investing, building business, starting a business, doing side hustles. And then also, there will be a tiny portion of crypto. I'd say about 80% of it's non-crypto, and it's with things like building businesses and investing, and then just a very small amount of crypto. It's completely flipped from what it was before. But James is going to be a great addition to this community. And we are actually kicking off, as I record this is Tuesday, December the 12th. We're doing an AMA, and Ask Me Anything in his community, but we're launching a crazy price for people to get in and try out the group, $1 for 30 days. I don't know how long this offer is going to last, but if you're listening to this anywhere around December the 15th when this airs, and a few days after, you'll be able to get in on that trial offer. Go to passiveincomeengines.com, passiveincomeengines.com. I'm really excited about the direction of that group, and one of the things that we want to bring to it is just helping people start various businesses. Like, I love helping people brainstorm ideas and to get those ideas off, and that'll be a platform for me to be able to do that. So I'm excited about that piece of it, and also learning from James. He's a wealth of knowledge in the investment space and the business space. So I know you're going to love this interview. It was so fun hearing his story of how he got to where he is. He's a really cool guy, loves Jesus. Here's my interview with James. James Pelton, welcome to Streams of Income, man.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
It's so cool. Like when Travis said that he was having you on, I was like, that's awesome. I guess when you have a YouTube channel with as many people as you have, you become like a mini celebrity, don't you?
I think it's kind of like a big fish in a small pond. So my kids always ask me, are you famous? And I said, not really. Like, nobody really knows me unless you're in crypto or passive income. Right. And maybe in that little pond, I'm a big name, but they're like, when we go to the airport or something, they're like, how come nobody here knows you? And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not Mr. Beast. They've asked me that before. They said, are you as famous as Mr. Beast? And I said, no. He's got 200 million subscribers. I have 50,000 subscribers. So yeah, it's all relative, right?
Right. Well, 50,000, that's quite a lot, man. I'd love to hear that story too, how you got there. But I know that people know that over listening, if they know you, they've probably heard of you through YouTube and crypto and passive income stuff, but you've got a life beyond that, and you do a lot of really cool things with your family and having people in your home. But I guess tell us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so yeah, Jesus is a big part of my story. Um, but I grew up in a Christian family, so I kind of believed in Jesus. But then there was still like, as a young man, especially, there was like, oh man, I really want to get rich. And then everybody was telling me, all my Christian, pastors and people would say, money's not this answer. And I would just inside, I was like, yeah, you've never been rich. Like, you don't know, you don't know what you're talking about. So I always like really didn't believe that was true. And so when I got, I started my business online. I wrote some software that sends out mass text messages. And this was a really good lesson is if you're looking, tried tons of businesses and none of them worked. Yeah. And finally, I looked at a problem that I had personally. I was a youth pastor. And we were looking to let the students know where we were going out to eat after church. Yeah. And it was a big pain point because we had 70 students and it just inevitably people wouldn't get the message that, hey, we're going to Taco Bell tonight or whatever the case might be. And so I was brainstorming one night. I was like, okay, if I was going to do this manually, how would I let everyone know? It's like, well, I would send each person a text message individually. Yeah. And I said, okay, is it possible for me to automate that some way? That's how I think as I'm a software guy. Yeah. And so I thought, oh yeah, I could write some software that sends a text message individually to each person. Wow. And so I wrote that. I sat down. It took me one night. I just sat down. I wrote this. I announced it to my youth group. I was like, hey, everybody, text Alpha Omega. That was the name of our group. Okay. Text Alpha Omega to this number. You'll be signed up to receive these text alerts. And it worked. Like everybody was signed up.
Can you go like, what are some of the details? Maybe I don't know if there's anything you can't say because you sold that business, but like, what's the back end of that look like? Were you on your computer and you were sending a message on your computer and automatically did it?
Yep. And that's how I started. And actually, another thing I learned about business was you always start small. Yes. Start with a minimum viable product. A lot of times people have a vision for, I want to build the next, I don't know, something huge. I want to build the next Amazon or something like that. And it's like, okay, that's great, but start with the minimum viable product. Well, it's going to take you years and years and years to build the next Amazon. Yeah. What's something small you could do to make sure that you actually finish it? That's the number one problem I see with entrepreneurs is they don't finish. They like to start, but they don't actually like to finish anything. Yeah. And let's start small so you can actually get it finished. And if it ends up not working, you can kind of fail early. So before you've sunk in, I see tons of companies that go raise $200 million and then they start building and they're like, oh, actually no one wants what we're building. And it's like, well, you should have started with the minimum viable product. Exactly. I'm all about the minimum viable
product. Always done that. To me, that's just normal, but maybe that's because I didn't have $200 million access to that. I mean, but so you have to start scrappy.
Yep. Absolutely. That's been a huge lesson that's helped me a lot. So I started just real basic. I actually, you got on your computer and I don't know if you remember this, but they used to have like, you could send an email to like your phone number at vtext.com and it would text that person through Verizon. Yes. So my original code that I wrote just used that. It had a lookup to check what phone carrier they were. It looked up what's the email address that sends a text to that number. Okay. And so it was free on my end. So cool. And that's how I started. And that worked great until I started sending like 100,000 a day. Because what happened was people started to hear that I had this program in place with my church, and all the churches around Lincoln started calling and they said, hey, we need that. And so I'd set it up for a few churches, and then churches outside of Lincoln started hearing about it. And then I think it was about after the 30th church that I was getting set up, all for free. And it was taking a ton of time to get this set up. I realized, okay, I think this might actually be a business, not like something that I'm just going to do for free for every church that asks for the rest of my life. And that's a good thing because we ended up with about 30,000 churches. Oh my gosh. Across the country.
How'd you flip it? Because I have a lot of pastors and people in ministry that listen to these episodes, and they always have a problem starting a business. Like they think, well, people come to me for free already as a pastor, so how in the world would I ever flip that switch to charge for coaching or whatever? So how did you make that switch?
And it was really difficult. It was really hard for me to tell, and especially like smaller churches, like they don't have much of a budget. And, even if I come out and say, I mean, I wasn't charging something ridiculous. It was like, hey, it's going to be $15 a month or something. Yeah. But even then I had some churches, hey, that we don't have that in the budget. What do you do? And So I really struggled through that for a while, and I'd have churches contact, hey, I can't afford 15 a month. Could you do 9 a month? And things like that. And
wow.
yeah,
Can't afford,
it was
that blows my mind. The church can't afford $15 a month.
$15 a month. Well, and I hate to, for everyone watching, I mean, no offense to anyone, but churches can tend to be kind of cheap. More so than traditional businesses, which is, I don't think that's the way that it should be. I don't think that churches should be feeling like, oh, we're scraping the pennies at the bottom of the barrel and asking for discounts everywhere that they go. That's not like the message that I want to send to the world about what churches are. Yes. But that is the reality.
Follow Jesus, you can be completely poor and not be able to feed your family.
Yep. And
nobody wants that.
You know, stressing out over $2 or $3 a month is not something that I wanted. And then what really changed the business, so it was really hard starting to charge, but then what really kind of changed the direction of the business was I had Steak and Shake got in touch with me one day. So I was mostly churches, and Steak and Shake got in touch. They said, hey, we want to send 3 million messages a month and we want to pay you $30,000 a month. Wow. And so, you know, I had, that's like 1,000 churches paying $30 a month, or 2,000 churches paying $15 a month was this one company. And then I had Ghirardelli Chocolate reached out and they wanted to pay $15K a month, and Kawasaki wanted to pay $20K a month. And so
Did you have a team yet at that point?
Yes. So kind of what I had done, I was still working my 9 to 5 because I was a software developer. I mean, I was making 150K or I was making good money. Yeah. And so it was hard to, and I had a, family, wife and kids and everybody. And so it was really hard for me to be like, I'm just going to go out on a limb with this business. Yes. So I actually had 4 employees and I was still working my 9 to 5. Okay. I had a customer support guy, I had a programmer, I had a sales guy, and a part-time customer support person to kind of just keep an eye on things. Yeah. So when these marketing people started coming in, we kind of saw, okay, that's almost a whole new business. Yes. Where we almost started, my original business was called Mobile Text Alerts, because I'm an engineer and I just name everything what it is. I'm not a good marketer, honestly. Like I like to I have no buzzwords in my vocabulary. It's just like, hey, what is this? Mobile Text Alerts.
Well, it's simple. People understand what it is.
Yep. And then I almost started a new company, Mobile Text Marketing was going to be my new company, and they were going to be, but then I kind of just combined them together, and we kind of we're half focused on helping churches reach their congregation, and we're half focused on Steak and Shake reaching their customers. And, it's honestly kind of a similar use case. Yeah.
So, do you have any idea how Steak and Shake found you?
I think just the website. So I did a good job with search engine optimization. Where I just dominated. Wow. I was the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you search text alerts, I was the top 5 different pages and blog articles on my website. So
were there a lot of, do you think you were the first one to come out with this?
When I first started, my initial one I started was in 2011, and I could not really find anything else that was doing that. Now, of course, as soon as you get started with something, tons of people start coming into the industry, which creates competition, but it also created awareness, because when I first started, I had to explain, here's what a text alert is. It's you text into this number and then you get this message back. Yeah. But once it became more mainstream, like now everybody knows what that is. They've gotten a spam text message from a company or something like that. So in some ways it made marketing a lot easier. But then there's also competition where you had to beat either feature wise or price wise or something. You had to beat the person next to you. And one of the reasons I sold was because it kind of started to become a commodity where it was just a race to the bottom. People were just looking for who's got the cheapest. And that's not the type of market you want to be in, is the race to the bottom in a commodity where there's no way to differentiate yourself. So that was one of the reasons I sold it, which surprise ending to the story there. But in 2020, I had a company come in and make an offer on the business. And you'll appreciate this, Ryan. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but they came in with a number. And so I prayed to the Lord, and what I felt like he was asking me to do was ask for a much higher number that didn't really make sense. And if they said yes, then it was meant to be. If they said no, I'd keep running my business. So I came back with the number. It was about 25% higher than their offer.
Yeah.
And they said, wow, how did you come up with that number? And I said, I prayed to the Lord. That's the number that I came up with.
Yeah.
And they said, wow, that's a really hard thing to negotiate with. If you just say it's a number you
negotiate with
Lord.
God.
And they're like, there's like no wiggle room on that. And I said, well, the Lord, that's the number. Probably not. And they said, you are the most interesting negotiator we've ever talked to, is what they told me. But through that, it was a great
and you
time.
Got that
I learned
number?
a lot. What's that?
You got that 25% higher number?
I did.
That's awesome.
Yep. And I was able to, I worked out with them. Each of my employees, I was really worried about my employees because I actually had hired 3 of my brothers, one of my best friends growing up, another one of my best friends growing up. And so I was like, hey, you got to take care of them. So I'd actually worked in 2 that they each got like a $50K bonus if they stayed for a year.
Wow.
So each of my employees, so they were kind of bummed that I was leaving, but they were happy. Oh, we get 50.
Yes, we get 50K. See you, Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what ended up happening. So it was a great time. And I learned a lot. I went from kind of being, more paycheck to paycheck to now I had just tons of money coming in. And that taught me a lot about, first off, how little happiness money actually brings.
Yeah.
Because again, as a young man, I was obsessed. I was like, oh man, if I build my dream house, that was my pinnacle, was if I can build my dream house, I will be happy. I'll sit in my living room in my big house and I will just drink coffee and be happy. And we did do that. We built kind of our dream house. And I sat in the living room one day. This was maybe like a week after. And I was, at this time, I would have been 30 years old, 31 years old. And I just sat there and I was like, oh my goodness, was this the culmination of my life? And I've got really panicked because I was like, this is not that great. Like there's not any, it's like Ecclesiastes said, chasing the wind.
Yes.
And I kind of panicked, had an existential crisis and was like, man, what I've been living for my whole life, I just achieved and there's nothing there. And so that brought me on kind of a new path of, okay, well, what is the answer to life then? And I was like, well, of course I was like, you stupid. Of course, go to the Bible, the Bible. Yes. And then I was like, I'm just going to believe what it says. It was right about money. It was right about sex was another thing where, as a young man, you think, oh, I got to get married because, having sex, that's what life is about. And then you get married and you're like, oh, wow, that's actually a smaller part of life than I thought that it was. And so God, through all this, I just realized, hey, the Bible was right about money. It was right about sex. It was right about pride. That was another thing, is I loved people thinking highly of me, which when you start your own business and employ your whole family, then, your parents think really highly of you and it feels good. You're like, yeah, I'm the good one in the family. But God just showed me, 1 John 2, it says, all that is in the world, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the boastful pride of life is not from God. It's from the world. The world is passing away and also its lusts. The one who does the will of God lives forever. And so I think God sometimes, some people, he has them work through this by kind of withholding from them. And then they have to work through, okay, I'm not getting the money that I want. I have to work through this. With me, he did the opposite. He's like, you know what? For him, I'm going to work through this by giving him everything he wants and showing him that there's nothing. If there's nothing there, that's not, that's the sand that Jesus talks about. You don't build your house on the sand.
Yes.
And then that sent me on a path where it's like, you know what? All I want, Jesus Christ and him crucified.
Yes.
That's all there is. But then he's given me this acclamation for business. And so I've kind of, through the years, I've tried to figure out, okay, how do I use my business skill to help Christians, but also point them to, hey, here's how you can make more money, but making money is not really that important. And so that's kind of been a difficult path to navigate for me these last 3 years. And
Wow. What did you do? So you're sitting in your living room, drinking coffee, realize this is not the answer. What was your next business thing or career move?
Well, for a while, I kind of just took off. I started going to the gym for like 3 hours a day. And I was like, you know what? I'm only going to be young for so long. And I know it's going to be harder to stay in shape as I get older. So I'm going to take at least this time to just get in the best shape that I possibly can. So I kind of went to that. I was kind of burned out by business because I just sold my business and I wasn't ready to start something else up. So I kind of started getting into investing first. So then I started with the stock market, but then I was like, okay, you put your money in and then there's nothing else to do really. You're just supposed to sit on it for 20 years. Like, what do I do?
Yes.
So then someone suggested real estate. So I started I bought some rental properties. But then I get a call. Hey, my light bulb is out in my rental property in another city. And I'm like, oh, okay, can you change it? Like, what do you, they're like, no, you're the landlord. You should come change it. And I was like,
gosh,
oh man, I don't know if I like. And then I hired a rental management company, but then they were not doing a good job. So then I was trying to interview rental management property companies. And I said, you know what? This is worse than my business. Like, and some of these properties I'd be making like $200 or $300 a month and it'd be a ton of work. And I was just like, I don't know that real estate's what I want to be doing either. And then somebody talked to me about some crypto projects. And this was kind of at the height of the bull market. And I was like, I remember a guy told me you can make 26% with strong nodes. And I said, 26% a year? That's pretty good. He said, no, 26% a month. And I was like, okay, that's stupid. Like, don't do that. He's like, try it. Buy 2 nodes, let it go for 3 months, see how it goes. And so I put money in, and lo and behold, I made 26% for 3 months. And so then I kind of went all in, and I put in 6 figures. And it did very well for a long time, as everybody listening probably is familiar with the crypto experience. But through that, I was talking with I would always bring all these crazy things that I was doing to my wife. I'd say, oh my goodness, I just bought these NFT crabs that are making me $1,000 a day. And eventually she sat me down. She said, I don't care at all about all this weird stuff that you're doing. And you need to not talk about it so much with me. And I said, well, who do I got to get it out? Who I talk with? She said, start a YouTube channel or something like that. So I did that. I started a YouTube channel, had no expectations. I thought, it's 1,000 subscribers to get monetized. So I thought, okay, 6 months, get 1,000 subscribers. Maybe it can be a revenue stream. And then in about 2 months, I had 30,000 subscribers.
Wow. Do you think that was because it was a hot topic at the time?
I think so. That was the main thing. I think people appreciated too. Like, I was not, I don't know. I was just talking about what I was excited about.
You were sharing spreadsheet. This is what I'm making on this one, this one.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so I think people appreciated that. It was kind of a breath of fresh air in the space.
Yes.
And then ironically, as time went on, my channel has kind of had to morph into different things. I found it's a lot different if you have, 1,000 subscribers than if you have 50,000. 1,000 subscribers, everybody loved me, and I could be real clear with them. Like when I'm showing my spreadsheets that, hey, this is a part, I sold my business, so I'm putting in just a small part of my risk capital into these things. But as I got bigger, people started, I'm going to do James is wealthy. I'm going to do exactly what he does investing wise. And I try to tell people, do not do what I am doing unless you have lived the identical life that I have lived up to this point. So I've had to just kind of over the years trying to keep people happy. I had Christians starting to come to me saying, hey, it looks like you're bragging about your numbers and things like that. So just trying to, even today, still just trying to kind of tread through that. And even with, passive income engines, which I'd love to talk with you about here. Of course. But I got Christians reaching out to me. Why are you focused on helping people make money? That's not what's important. And I said, I know it's not what's ultimately important, but Jesus talks a ton about money. The Bible, I think, has 2,300 references to money and to making money. And another thing I realized even in Christians is that everyone was thinking about money and was stressed out about money, was trying to make more money, but no one was talking about it. And I thought,
such a taboo topic, isn't it?
Yep, such a taboo topic. And I said, we're all thinking about it. We're all stressed out about it. Rich and poor people alike are stressed out about money. And I said, we should talk about this as Christians and try to help each other out and teach people. I want to teach people money is not the secret to happiness. So let's make as much of it as we can to serve the Lord with it.
Yes.
And that's kind of the message I want to bring to people.
Absolutely. I don't really I know there's people that are loved having arguments and debates. That's totally not me. But my wife's more like that. She loves the debate. And so like for me with the topic of, Christians and money, I make things really simple, and this may help some people, may not, the other people that want to argue about it, and that's fine too. But for me, it's like, I know that we have the Great Commission to fulfill, that Jesus told us to go out in all the world and preach the gospel. And that is not free. It costs money for these ministries to do what they're doing. And so who is going to support them? And it's going to be Christians. And if we as Christians are living paycheck to paycheck, don't have any extra disposable income, then that commission cannot get fulfilled. And so for me, it's like, I want Christians to have enough money to be able to pay for all their bills and have extra to give to those causes. So it's really simple for me. I just feel like, we do need to have extra money. And I appreciate guys like you who are leading the way and showing us how to create that gap so that we do have extra to be able to give. So thank you for what you're doing. There needs to be more people like you out there that are doing that.
Well, thank you. No, it's always great to meet like-minded people. That's why it was great meeting you, great meeting Travis, and just, okay, you guys are kind of on the same mission. And to echo what you said, I found the exact same thing where, okay, pure and undefiled religion is to visit widows and orphans in their distress and keep oneself unstained by the world. James 1 says that.
Yes.
And so, okay, we want to keep ourselves unstained by the world. So we don't want to have the love for money. I don't really want Christians asking, when Lambo? That's the normal question in traditional finances. When can I get my Lamborghini? And if I see young men asking about that, I just want to help. I was in that same boat when I was in my early 20s, but I want to help lead men out of that, hey, God has bigger, not that that is bad, but God has bigger things for you, things that will make you eternally more joyful than a Lamborghini. You will get a Lamborghini and you will feel it will turn you away from Christ, if anything. And I want better things for you. But then, so you want to stay unstained by the world, but then taking care of widows and orphans. What I found when I went and found widows, the number one thing is they're like, oh, well, we need help paying our bills. And I don't want to be in a position where I'm going to help widows or going to help orphans. And then, we need help financially. I'm like, well, Christians, I have no way to help you get your bills taken care of for the month, or I have no way for you to get your food for the month. But I'll love you. And
I'll pray for you.
Pray for you. Yep.
I'll give you a track.
Yep. So, that's been my experience. Is it takes a lot of money. Well, and it's kind of like just as much as God gives me. I'm going to put myself in the path of blessing. That hey, God, I'm going to work as hard as I can with the business acumen that you've given me to make as much money as I can in order to help as many widows and orphans as I can.
Absolutely.
And that's just my philosophy. And that's what I want to help point others to as well.
That's so good. Yep. Wow. I'm curious I don't know if you want to go, there's so much we could talk about, and you're welcome to come on anytime you want to, but you guys are also living out and I want to talk about the passive income engines and you join in all that, because that's so cool. You and your wife live out, your Christian life in a unique way, that you have actually people staying with you. Can you talk a little bit about that and the heart behind that? Because I think that's fascinating. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, so even when we were dating, my wife told me, Jimmy, that's what she calls me. That's what people in person call me, Jimmy. She said, Jimmy, I really don't want to be just like a normal American rich family that just buys their big house, buys their nice car, goes on their nice trips for 2 weeks out of the year, buys maybe a vacation home, and then just kind of has like a normal life. I don't want that. And at the time I was thinking, ooh, that's exactly what I want. And she was more like, I want to be a missionary. And I'm like, I told her when we were dating, I said, I have no interest in being a missionary. I have no interest in going overseas. I like being comfortable. And she was like, I mean, she was sad about that, but she couldn't resist my charm. So it still happened. And then just as we built a big house, and we wanted to make sure, okay, we want no bedrooms to be empty. Like that's just not something we want. Wow. So we started trying to adopt at first.
Okay.
From Haiti was where we were looking to adopt, and we're learning French, and we were doing all the documentation, and it's an expensive
Yes,
It's a very difficult process adopting a child. I mean, I think in total, it was going to cost about $40,000 to get this kid, which is another reason that I want to make money. Is like, if somebody wants to adopt a kid from Haiti, I don't want $40,000 to be the reason that they're not going to do it.
Yes.
And then through that process, I was again teaching the college group at my church, and we had a student come from Cameroon. And I just got to know him a little bit and really appreciated the spirit in him. And he didn't know anybody here in the States. He had no family, no friends. And so we started inviting him to, like, oh, come to my brother's birthday party and come to Christmas with our family. And then it turned into, well, on the weekends, you don't have anything to do, come over on the weekends. And eventually, you know, campus, the University of Nebraska campus it's a little bit of a drive from where I live. I live kind of out in the suburbs. And so eventually I was like, you know what, we're bringing you in like 3 or 4 times a week. Why don't you just move in? We got extra room. And honestly, it's been my wife too, who's really pushed me a lot in that area. Because again, I'm always like, well, that'll make us uncomfortable. And she said, show me in the Bible where it says that the purpose of your house is to make you comfortable.
What?
And I'm kind of, I Google, okay, where in the Bible does it say be comfortable? And I'm like, oh no, there's no verses.
There's nothing. Man.
And so she would just keep pushing me on that. And then there was a Rwandan student who, the same thing. She kind of invited. She's like, "Hey, you should come live with us too." And I kind of looked at her. I'm like, "Hey, we should talk about this first." And she's like, "Are you gonna say? Do you think you say no?" I'm like, "Well, no, but I just want to help make the decision, I guess."
Yeah.
And and then another Rwandan student. Then we had a girl that was looking for a place to stay. So we said, "You come in." So at one point we had 5 college students.
Oh my goodness.
Living here.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's been great for us, just, you know, learning about hospitality.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to invite somebody over, but then you can kick them out at some point. But like when they live with you, it's like, oh my goodness, okay, this is really going to be a test of hospitality. So that's been good. It's been great for our kids too. I think just teaching them, hey, God didn't give us all this money for us just to have a good time.
Right.
But he wants us to help people. So, you know, what I teach my kids really important.
That's
to me as well.
That's so awesome, man. That takes a special, wow. That's just a special grace for that, I would imagine, on you guys to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, and on my like, honestly, if it was just me, I probably wouldn't have done it, because it gets uncomfortable, right? Yeah. And then you're like, oh no, and then you hear from the world, and even sometimes Christians, they say, no, your house is your refuge. I heard that. And it's like, okay, where does it say that? Where does the Bible say that? Like, that sounds good, and it sounds like your home is supposed to be a place of rest, and your home, and it's like, that sounds good, but then when you actually look through Scripture, you're like, oh wait, that's not. Bible never says that. And it does say be hospitable without complaint. And you see, like, Abraham, you know, he had these strangers come, right? And to tell him about that he was going to have a son. And that's when Sarah laughed and all that. And then right away, Abraham said, hey, go kill an animal. Let's feed them. You guys stay with us for a while. And we find out that's the pre-incarnate Christ.
Exactly. Isn't that cool?
And it's like, oh man, we better take care of people. Hebrews says some of you, without knowing it, have entertained angels.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, I'm not gonna tell an angel they've got to go live somewhere else. It's like, you can stay here. You know what?
Absolutely.
And it's been a huge blessing to us. It's, you know, it had its challenges for sure, but
for sure,
huge blessings.
That's awesome. My goodness, I feel like there's so many questions I could ask you, but we want to get to some of the passive income engine stuff. So with your YouTube channel and growing up a following of people that listen to you for your advice on crypto and DeFi and all that, obviously it's been a little bit of a rough year. So maybe talk about that, and then like what you're doing to help people, because now you've got a following of people that look to you for advice.
Yeah.
You know, how are you leading them now through what's been kind of rough into, you know, what we're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think what happened to me and to a lot of people is you get into this get rich quick. You know, you start seeing some money coming in, and you get FOMO because you hear about somebody else. I put $1,000 into Shiba Inu, and now it's worth $1 billion. And you start your eyes get kind of big, and you're like, well, I don't want to miss out on that. And so you start trying to put your money in all sorts of different things. And if you don't get into something, you feel really, oh, why didn't I not get into that? And And so, kind of abandoned a lot of biblical principles and a lot of my business principles. When I was for a while, I was part of an investment group where we would do venture capital deals. And basically it was like Shark Tank. People would come in and say, and we would always ask, where's the revenue coming from? How is this going to be sustainable and things like that? And then for some reason, when crypto projects came in, I don't know if we just didn't understand them well enough or what, but I was not asking, where does the revenue come from? How is this going to be sustainable? And it took me until we were into the bear market where I realized, why did I ask different questions when I was doing venture capital and when I was doing crypto investing? It's the exact same thing that I'm doing. I'm putting money into a company. And one thing we call them projects. So I don't know why we do that. These are companies. These are businesses. I think calling them project, I don't really know where that came from, but they're businesses. They're and it's like, oh, I would have never invested in that business if they came into my venture capital group. But why did I feel like in crypto that I would do that? And so that was one kind of just realization I have was, oh man, I abandoned, because of the dollar signs, you abandon business practices. And then there's some passages. One that's really stuck out to me is wealth obtained hastily will dwindle. But he who gathers little by little will increase. Proverbs says that. And I said, why did I abandon that? I was looking for the home runs instead of, and I would have, when you look at my numbers, I would have been better off putting consistently my money into safer things, little by little, and not having this huge, I'm going to become a billionaire next week. And so, kind of those two things, and it's kind of lesson learned. It's the school of hard knocks. And and then my channel, I've kind of shifted that. It's like, okay, well, if I actually want to help people, probably bringing up these potential 1000x things is not the most helpful for people. And so I started looking for revenue. That brought me to a lot of side hustles. Like yesterday, I secured a vending machine placement.
Wow.
So that's cool. One thing I'm wanting to do is like, okay, vending machines have a revenue source. They have customers. I know where the money's coming from. I know how the money flows and how that works. It's a business. I can do that. Amazon reviews is another one where it's like, okay, it increases Amazon's revenue to make these videos. So I know why they're paying, and I know where the money comes from. And so I've kind of tried to shift to that and just kind of helping people think through things. Let's get rich quick. Let's gather little by little, make a plan, and get to where the Lord would have us.
That's good. Yeah. So guys, the big announcement is that James is joining Travis and myself and David Powers with the 2.0 version of the Passive Income Engines group. Travis started that back a couple of years ago, I think, a year and a half ago. And I was an affiliate for that, helped out in the group early on, and then it started getting really crypto heavy, and I'm like, wow, this is really technical. I don't really feel like I add a lot of value here. And so I'm still in the group, but not as active as I was at the beginning, because it was, like you, very technical. But now we're excited to share a 2.0 version that is much more holistic, with traditional investments, with side hustles and businesses. And yes, there's going to be some crypto, but I'd say it's about 80% other stuff and 20% crypto, where it was 90% crypto before. So, and you have an awesome video in there called The Plan. Do you want to share that, like a summary of what that is, so people get an idea of like what's changed about the way that we're going about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually working on this right now. As soon as we're done with this call, I'm going to hopefully finish it up. But a kind of a questionnaire for people to help put together a plan, because that's part of the reason we fell into a lot of the crypto problems, was because we didn't have a plan. We were just kind of going around doing whatever our gut was feeling like. Oh, I feel like getting into this. I feel like getting into this. And so the way I kind of think about it now is, first off, I ask people, why do you want to make passive income? And I want people to get real clear on that. Is it, and if they say win Lambo, then I'm going to encourage them to have a different reason, reason to want it. So we want to keep the first thing. Then I kind of say, okay, how much passive income are you looking to create? And I just actually sent out an email asking for responses. I actually have got now 370 responses. So, and I promised in the email, Travis helped me write the email, but he said, I promise I will read all of the responses. So this morning I was,
Oh my
while I was
goodness.
at the gym, I was going through and reading all of
Wow.
them, and I was trying to pray for each person as I went through them
Yes.
too. But
Yes.
so, and most of the
Crazy.
numbers, you know, some people are just wanting, I want $1,000 or $2,000 a month.
Sure.
Some people are like, I had a guy, I want 50,000 a month to replace my job as a doctor in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Nice.
So that's one of the things. The kind of the next question I ask is, how much money do you need to make? And then I kind of, the way I think of it is, okay, so if you put your money in safe investments, we'll say something that made 15% a year. That's a safer investment. Like I have some cattle that do that, and that's a real asset. This is not crypto. This is fairly safe investments, relatively safe.
Right.
And so if you're making 15% a year from your safe investments, well, how much total capital would you need to make $5,000 a month from that safer investment?
Right.
And the answer might be, okay, well, I need $2 million in capital for that to be, that's kind of, and then to me, that's kind of the end goal then. So when you get $2 million, you have it in a safe asset that's making you the passive income that you want.
Right.
That's the end of your goal. Then you can get out of pie. Okay. Because that's, you've reached the goal. And so then to get there, that 2 million might sound like a lot to people. So then I ask, okay, how much capital do you have to start? And a lot of people say 0. I'm starting at 0.
Wow.
Then I say, how much can you afford to invest per month? And some people say, you know, $100, $200. I had a couple of people say $1,500, things like that. And then my calculator kind of shows, okay, to get, if you have 0 and you're putting in 100 a month, to get to 2 million will take you 45 years. And then it's like, okay, well, we need to supercharge that in some way. That's, I don't want you to have to be in pie for 45 years. That's not the goal. And so
you and Travis are younger than me, so you guys can keep running. I may not. Hopefully I'll be here in 45
We'll do
years.
a pie,
I don't know though.
nursing home edition or something like that at that point. So then I kind of ask, okay, how much extra time do you have per week to put into potentially a side hustle or something like that?
Yeah.
And so then, okay, if you used a side hustle, if you made a vending machine company that was making you $1,000 a month, and you were able to put that into your investment, okay, now it went from 45 years to 15 years. It's like, okay, well, now we're starting to get more manageable.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, what if we use some crypto to not put all your money into and hope for a home run shot, but what if we use some medium risk crypto projects that are making 5 or 6% a month, and we use those to kind of supercharge what you're doing?
Yeah.
And then the calculator will spit out, okay, well, if you do that, then you could get to your number that you need in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now we're at something that we can work with, and this can be kind of the plan that we're looking at. And you'll have to adjust it as time goes on, but that's kind of the philosophy.
That's awesome. It's sensible. It's and it is, I love that scripture about wealth gain hastily, it dwindles. But that's so that in line with that for sure. In 5 years, as some people can wrap their head around versus 45.
Right.
So,
exactly.
I love it. That's so awesome. Wow. Well, we're excited to have you as a part of that, because I think it's going to just be amazing. And I'm excited that we have a section about businesses, because that's really where I thrive. I love talking to people about how to grow their income, how to start a business. I love brainstorming with people. So that's going to be fun for me to dig into that group. And I know some people are there want passive stuff, and none of my stuff has ever been passive as far as the businesses I've created.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
But for those that are, you know, want to start a business, create a course, start a membership community, that's really where I thrive. And it's going to be fun to see how I can be a help to that. So
love that. Yeah. And I love partnering, because everybody has different skill sets. Right. And so if I was, you know, the more people I can find that have a mindset of, hey, we want to please Christ. Second, we want to help Christians financially. It's like, hey, you've got skills that I've never dabbled in. And so, hey, let's just bring them all together. And that's kind of what we've done in Pi. So,
I love what you're doing. Especially even in the group already, you're praying for people, you're preaching. So what I'd say for the last question here, unless there's something else you want to hit, is just what, you know, some advice for Christian entrepreneurs and people in business. You know, there's all these things out there that like, oh, you shouldn't be, like we just talked about it, you know, you shouldn't be a Christian and be wealthy and all that. But any encouragement you can give to people who are believers that are doing business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, First Timothy 6 is kind of probably the core passage for me, where it talks about, godliness. It talks about how some Christians are trying to use God in order to make money. Okay, that's their goal, is they actually want the money. So you have to be really careful about that as a Christian, that when we talk about, hey, if you give to, Proverbs says, if you give to others, God will give to you. He who waters others will himself be watered. He who gives to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay.
Yes.
But a lot of people hear that. And I talk a lot about that, hey, if you're generous, God will give you more. But you have to be careful that you're not going after that. You're not trying to use God to get to my actual goal is I want money. And so I'm going to use God to get to making money. So that's something I want people to be super clear about, is that is not how it works. If you're using God to get to money, it will not work out for you. This life or the next. Don't do it. Stop it.
Right.
But there were some people that were using godliness as a means to make money. And so Paul tells Timothy, he says, godliness is a means of great gain if accompanied with contentment. For you brought nothing into this world, and you won't take anything out of it either. But but the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. That's that verse. And some, by longing for it, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. And he says, flee those things, you man of God, and pursue righteousness and love. But then a few verses later, so that would kind of lead you to believe, okay, so we should not be rich Christians ever. We should probably get out of this somehow.
Right.
And I will tell you, it is hard to stop being a rich Christian, because you'll see as you give to others, God, it's true, God does give to you.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard. Some people tell me you shouldn't be a rich Christian. And it's like, well, what do you do to not? And they're like, well, give more money away. It's like, well, the more I give
God
away,
is going to
the
give
more
you
God
more.
brings it.
Yeah.
And so then a few verses later, Paul tells Timothy, instruct those who are rich in this present age to not be conceited, which can come up where you start thinking, oh, I'm better than these people. They're make this. I have all this money. Don't be conceited, and don't put your hope in riches, but put your hope in God, who richly supplies us with all good things to enjoy. Be generous, ready to share, and thus you'll be storing up a treasure for the future. And you'll take hold of that which is truly life. And I love the way that Paul words it there, but inspired by the Holy Spirit, that you're storing up that's what life is actually about, is loving others, giving to others, being generous, being ready to share. There's other verses that say, if you're a thief, stop stealing, work hard so that you'll have something to share with other people. And so that's really all that we're trying to do, is we're trying to, hey, let's get some extra so that we can share with other people. I believe wholeheartedly, and I want everyone that's in Pi to believe, that it makes you happier. It says the words of Jesus, makes you happier to give than it does to receive. And it's hard for people to believe that. They think, no, I want to receive. And it's like, you got to believe.
There's nothing that beats that feeling of meeting somebody's needs. I'm sure it's happened to you where you felt impressed to bless somebody financially or with something, and they're like, oh my gosh, James, that's exactly what I needed. There's so many stories that we've had of giving somebody money, and it's like, I needed that exact amount, or it's just, I needed it at this exact time. And it's like, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to be a blessing, using me to be able to, touch them. Is so fun. And it's that feeling of being able to give to somebody. It's really nothing that matches that feeling. Of being able to be used in that way and see them just they'll be in tears and like, wow, God allowing me to be a part of that. So cool.
Yeah. And I love how you worded that, because it's not like God needs our money, right? Like Psalm 50 says, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. If I was hungry, I wouldn't even tell you. I would just go take a cow. Like, I don't need you. But he allows us to be part. He says, okay, I want to take care of this widow or this orphan or whatever. And I want you to be my axe to make that happen. And so then you get the joy of, hey, I'm just letting the Lord use me, and you get to see the blessing, but it's actually God that's taking care of them. And you can tell that person that. Sometimes they look to you as like, wow, you saved me. And it's like, hey, this is God. Like, I'm not a good person, and it's God who's done this. I mean, when I negotiated to get my money, I literally prayed, and God gave me the number to ask for. I mean, it's hard for me to say it's any of my cleverness or anything like that. So it is. It's a blessing to be co-laborers with God. Is how Paul words it, and really love it. So
Well, James, thanks so much for being on this. I tell you, to say this to a few people that are on, if you ever want to come back on, you have a message on your heart and you want to just come on and share or want to talk about anything, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I love talking, so I'll probably take you up on that. Sometimes
Let's
I
do it.
monologue.
You just let me know.
Yeah, awesome. No, I appreciate you letting me on and sharing my heart, and we'll be talking more.
Right.
And excited to be in Pi. Hopefully, some of your audience too will come join us in the Passive Income Engines group.
Yes, we will invite them for sure. Thanks again, my friend.
All right, take care, brother.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.